Year 7, welcome to this video which is designed to give you some eSafety presentation tips, some things to do with the PowerPoint app, and explain what you need to do to make sure that your project can be assessed. So in particular, we're going to look at checking you've completed your content. We're going to look in particular at part 3 of the workbook in just a second. We're also then going to look at some hints using the PowerPoint app, including how to do some of the things for the extension tasks, and finally look at how the project is going to be assessed. So your workbook contains parts 1 and parts 2, which are designed to lead you into better presentations, but it's part 3 and part 4 that are critical for your assessment. So the first thing we need you to do is to make sure that you have completed part 3 of the workbook. Read the instructions carefully again, and then make sure that you've filled in for each of the slides what content you've added. You can use bullet points for this. Just a quick summary of the content of your presentation, making it clear what the individual thing is, image or a list or a link, for example, and what it's actually for. Do that quickly for each of your slides, and that will complete part 3. Now, assuming you've completed part 3 of the workbook, the next stage is to tidy up and improve the content and enable you to add some extras, which will get you extra marks. So we're going to be looking at the PowerPoint app itself and some of the features that are included in the main app that aren't in the web version that you might have been using to put your content together. So we're going to be looking at how to move slides around, reorder them, how to add video content from the web, and also animated GIF or GIF images, in-slide animations, and slide-to-slide transitions, and how to set the slide timings if you want your presentation to run automatically. So let's get into this. Now I'm using an eSafety presentation that's already been written. You'll see there's a lot of slides here. And the first thing is to note that if you think that one of your slides is in the wrong order, you can literally pick up the slide in the slide sorter view down here on the left-hand side and drag it around. So now what was slide 3 is now slide 2, and I can move it back if I change my mind. Now this particular slide might look as if that's what's going to appear when you run the slide, but if I actually run the presentation, you'll notice that the text hasn't appeared. In fact, if I now click, you'll see that the individual bits of information and shapes like the border on the 91% gradually appearing as I click. And this idea of in-slide animations, it makes a presentation far more interesting to look at. Now you can do some of these animations on the web version, but in the real PowerPoint app, there are far more. Towards the right on the toolbar, you'll see animation pane. And this will pop out on the right hand side. At the same time, each of the items on the slide gets a number attached to it. So 1, 2, 3. And so you can see the order of the objects as they appear on the screen. And they match up with the numbers here in the animation pane. So if I wanted this image, for example, to appear first, once it's selected, I can select which of these animations I wish to use. If I press the down arrow here, there's a large list of animations, and even more if I click on these extras. So say I want to use the grow and turn animation. You'll see it gives me a very quick preview of how that will work. And you'll see it's been placed as the last animation on the slide. Now I probably want this to appear at the very beginning. And so in the animation pane, I can simply move that animation to the top of the list. And now that picture will appear before the other text appears. Now by default, the person running the presentation has to actually click to make it work. But in the drop down, you can change this to with the previous animation or after the previous animation. Now this picture is right at the beginning of the slide. So the previous animation is actually when we arrive on the slide. So I can select after previous, which means the picture won't require me to click. It will animate automatically as we arrive on the slide. I can then click to produce the first question, but I might want the text of these percentages to appear at the same time as the question. So here I can use with previous, which means both of these animations will actually happen at the same time. And notice there's now 2 1s in the list. So the bottom line is you can control when items appear as you click. So I want to add some in-slide animations to each of your slides to make it more interesting. Now the other key thing you can change with presentations is the transitions, and this is how we arrive on this slide. The default is none, which means that the slide will simply appear. One of the quickest ones to add is fade, which means that the slide fades from the last slide into the new one. But there are lots of other alternatives like push, wipe, and even some very impressive visual effects like curtains, for example. Again, there are a heap of these on the online version, but there are far more effects included in the real app. As with all things, you can overdo it, so it's not a good idea for every individual slide to have a different transition. But if you click on one of the slides on the slide sorter view on the left, press the Control key and A will allow you to select all of the slides in the presentation and select a transition that will work for all of them. Now, a couple of things we might want to add to our presentations. Online video. So suppose you've found a YouTube video that you want to include on your presentation. Simply press the share button below the video and copy the web address, the URL of that video. Back on PowerPoint, you can select Insert, Video, and Online Videos. So paste the web address into the space at the top and you'll see a little preview of that video will appear, and then simply click Insert. This will place the video as a little frame which you can move around and place wherever you want it to be, and resize if you want the video to be larger. When you have that selected, you have some options related to that object. So you can change the look of the video, but also its playback options. For online videos, the only one you can really change is when it starts. But I can change this to run automatically or when clicked on. Automatically means that the video will play as soon as we reach the slide, and when clicked on, pretty obvious. Okay, but let's try it. Okay, there's the video. It's already appeared, and if I click on the video, it will start playing immediately. The other thing you can include, if it's appropriate, in your presentation is moving images, in particular, animated GIFs. Now I can perform a search for my image, so in this case password security, but this will largely give me static images. So to get animated GIFs, click on Tools and then Type and select GIF or GIF, however you pronounce it. Now these appear to be static images, but if you click on the image you'll see the animation running, and you can try out the different images and see what they look like. Now once you're happy that you've selected the image that you want to use, just right click on the image itself that's animating and select Save Image As. And save the image to the local folder, making sure that it has a decent name that you're going to recognise. Back in PowerPoint, you can then insert the picture from this device, find the image you saved, and then organise that on your presentation. When you run the presentation, you'll notice that the animation will automatically run and loop. Now, the final thing you might find it useful to do is to set the presentation so that it automatically runs. It doesn't require clicking as you go through. To do this, go to the slideshow menu and select Rehearse Timings. Now, this will run the presentation from the beginning, and it will remember when you click the mouse. And at the very end, it will confirm how long your presentation is in total. I went a bit mad here, 8 seconds. But if you're happy, you can click yes, and that will mean that the animations will automatically happen at the time you clicked. So a few things there to give you hints on how to improve the overall look and the style of your presentation. But let's now take a look at part 4 of the workbook and how we need to present our work for assessment. So part 4, of course, is just below part 3, and it's split up into a series of different sections. Now, one of the most important things to do in part 4 is to actually include a link to the presentation. And I would suggest doing that here at the very top, just add a couple of extra lines. Pop back to your PowerPoint, whether it's on the online version or the real version, and click the share button up here in the top right, and then copy link. This will give you a link that you can then paste into OneNote, and will mean that your teacher will be able to click on that link and actually load up your presentation to view. Now, the first section you're going to get marked on is the quality of your research. And what we want you to do is to list which slides you have covered these aspects. So copy the text in the bullet point list and paste that bullet point list, and at the end of each of these, type in which slide the content's actually on. Now, the marks are going to be awarded based on how much you've included and how good the research was. So for 3 out of 3 marks, everything needs to be covered, and there needs to be good examples that you've clearly researched from the web. If you've covered all the points, but your research is weak in some areas, you'll get 2 marks. If you haven't included all the points, you'll get 1 mark. Okay, the next section is images. And we're generally expecting you to have used images on all of the slides, but we do want you to confirm that here in this top box. We then want you to select 4 of your images, say which slide they're on, and explain why you chose to use that image. How does it add to the content of the slides? Here is an example. You'll see that I've said exactly which slide it's on, a description of what the object is, and a clear description of why I chose to use that image. Do that for any 4 images of your choice. Now, you'll be meeting expectation if you've included good high quality images and they're related to the slides. If we see images that we can't really see why they're relevant, then you'll only be given 1 mark. And obviously if there aren't enough images at all, you'll get 0. To exceed our expectations, we're looking for you to have created at least 1 of your own images or modified the image. Okay, the next section is presentation. we're looking for consistent style and colour. So for that, it's important that your slides aren't all different colours and different styles, that it looks like a single presentation, that the text is readable, that you haven't chosen a background where the text is really difficult to read. Now in the boxes underneath, you've got the opportunity to list the slide numbers and particularly good examples of what you've seen above and particularly good examples of presentation. So look through your presentation and try and find examples of presentation that you're particularly proud of and note them down. Any images you've created on your own can be detailed here, and you can also point us at anything you think in the presentation exceeds our expectations. Okay, so more detail underneath on the marks available for the presentation and some further clues on things that you can include in the box above on things that will exceed our expectations. Now, a few of these have been included in this video. These are extra credit, a section that allows you to gain extra marks for adding additional content. So illustrating an animation from the internet and where you've used that appropriately can go in this box. Showing embedding a video can go in this box. And animations and slide transitions can go in this box. Show print screen means we're looking for you to use a tool like Snip and Sketch to pick out and include bits of evidence, like the animation pane here, that illustrate very clearly that you have done the task that we're looking for. Please make sure any picture that you include, you explain underneath what we're actually looking at. And you'll see the marks for extra credit will be added based on what you've included evidence for. Just to emphasise, if you haven't provided evidence in OneNote, even if it's in your presentation, you won't gain the marks. Now when we go through and mark this, we will confirm your W, M or E grade based on our assessment. And you may get some specific feedback here, although very often we will actually note that feedback in the boxes above where you provided the evidence. Once your work has been assessed, we ask you to write down your EBI, which is really even better if. What could you have done to improve your grade? Or what would you have done if you'd have had extra time on the project? It gives you an opportunity to reflect on the quality of your evidence, whether or not you managed your time correctly, and how you can improve on future projects. So thank you for listening carefully to this video. You can always come back and watch the video again if there's something for which you need a recap.